welcome into tonight here another Topic of the Week video. This week I'm going to be talking about Ace Attorney, some of the actually lesser appreciated games in the franchise. This week's topic was submitted by Tumblr Anon, and their topic is Justice for All, Apollo Justice, the first investigations games in Dual Destinies are pretty underrated Ace Attorney games in my honest opinion. Do you agree or disagree? Do you agree with what detractors say about each game or not? What is good about these games? Favorite memories from these games? Favorite cases? That's a very good question, actually. A lot of questions, actually. I love pretty much all the Ace Attorney games equally, for the most part. I think they're all good games. Even my least favorite one, I still think is good. It's just overall been a good series. All of the 6 main games, Investigations 1, and I'm actually playing through the fan translation of Investigations 2, and I really like it. Some of these games do have... they're not as appreciated in the fandom as others. Now, of course, you'll ask different people what are their favorite games, what are their least favorite games. You'll get all sorts of different answers. Some games people just don't like. Some people don't like Spirit of Justice. I think Spirit of Justice is arguably one of my favorite in the entire franchise. But there are some times, and I do agree with what the person says here, that some of these games are just not as appreciated as much. And sometimes they get some undue hatred. So let me start with Justice for All. Justice for All is the second game in the original Ace Attorney trilogy. And it's one of those weird things where, yeah, there are some cases in it that I'm not really, as hyped about. I mean, I'll be honest, parts of the Big Berry Circus case did drag. The whole case in Korean, village, parts of it did kind of drag, though. I remember playing it way back before I actually bought all the games. I had that game on an emulator, and the emulator crashed after I beat the Korean case, so I had to play through it again. So I have a few negative memories from it, but that's purely subjective. Those are just some feelings. Overall, it's actually still a very good case. Justice for All, I do think sometimes it gets some undue hatred, which is baffling for me, because I loved the game when I played it. When I actually, bought the game on the DS and I played through it, I'm like, wow, I really like this. Especially the last case. I mean, there will be spoilers for this, and I genuinely want to say you don't want to be spoiled for these games, because there's some great twists in the franchise. But, so yeah, I'm fair warning, because I'm going to be getting into some spoilers for Justice for All in a little bit. I think Justice for All was actually really good. Sure, some of the cases in the middle weren't, mind-blowing. But then again, there's always cases like that in basically every game that are just they're basically here to fill a quota. And they're still enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, even the Big Berry Circus case, it's not bad. I think some people blow the issues out of proportion, to be perfectly honest. It's it's still an enjoyable case with a lot of interesting characters. And it's still a fun case to go through. It's just that there's always that part, it's just mainly the part where you have to run around interrogating or investigating and talking to everyone, and the part where you get docked if you try to press Mo wrong and he tells a bad joke. Yeah, there's some annoying parts. But that's really small, because I still really enjoy the case. The last case of Justice for All is one of my favorite in the entire series, though. So even if there's anything that's any issues in the game, I think they're made up by the last case. The reveal with Matt Ungard was absolutely mind-blowing. The fact that he's the villain, it's I didn't expect that. And the fact that he's smart enough to tell a technical truth, enough of a technical truth to trick the Magatama not to reveal him as hiding a secret, that's good. And the reveal of him being the actual villain, and the fact that Phoenix is now defending an actual bad guy, that was very interesting. It was very interesting. I love that case. Also, remember, Justice for All gave us Franziska von Karma, one of the best prosecutors in the series. I mean, I love Franziska. A lot of people love Franziska, and it's Justice for All is what introduced Franziska to the franchise. So even if people who have issues with Justice for All, I honestly think it's there's so much good about it anyway that it outweighs any of the bad in the game. And there's so many great moments in it. I mean, I do love one of my favorite moments is just the reveal with Matt Ungard. That is one of my favorite moments because it took me by surprise. Like, I'm really good at predicting stuff. I've seen enough movies, video games and stuff to pick out cliches and predict stuff. That took me by complete surprise. I did not expect that at all. It was shocking for me. And that never happens. So the fact that it hit me that hard and I was just blown away. And I like that. I like that. That was really well done. Apollo Justice. Oof. Now, Apollo Justice, some people are probably going to disagree with me, but a lot of people are. Some of you are going to hate me. Some of you are going to love me. I'm sorry. I'd take a jab at I hate everything there, but I think Apollo Justice is probably the worst out of all of the games. Not because it's bad. Remember, I said all these games are good, and they are good. The thing is that Apollo Justice is just less good than everything else. And it has some of the weakest parts of the game. Now, the fact that they were trying to establish a new protagonist with Apollo. Apollo was fun. I like Apollo. But Apollo got better in Dual Destinies, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I found him to be just kind of a Phoenix Light in Apollo Justice. And the fact that Phoenix, for the most part, seems out of character. Now, I figured he wasn't totally out of character, but I can see where a lot of people hate the game and the fact that you don't really get Phoenix right outside of the real Phoenix right outside of a few bits. And like, I get it, but I think the hate that Apollo Justice gets is way overblown. It's like, yeah, I think this is the least enjoyable game out of all of them, but it still introduced a lot of great stuff that carried on throughout the rest of the second trilogy. We were introduced to Apollo. We're introduced to Trucy. We have Memoir. We have... I mean, the fact that they have a whole new cast is interesting, but... I mean, I really want the old cast back. I really want people like Gumshoe and Francisca to come back. And they've been slowly doing that starting in Dual Destinies. They're like, okay, alright. And especially in Spirit of Justice, where we actually get Maya and Larry back. But it's like, Apollo Justice felt a little, like, Apollo as a character was very much just Phoenix Wright light. And he didn't really feel as distinct. It wasn't until he became more of a sourpuss in Dual Destinies, really, and I'll talk about this later, but he really contrasts well with Athena, that I think Apollo really kind of came into his own as a character. Really, I think the problem is that it was just too separated from everything. And yeah, there was the time skip. Yeah, obviously, that separates things from the original trilogy. But the fact is that it felt so disconnected from a lot of stuff, which is where I think a lot of people got put off. And I do agree. I do wish that it still kept more of the same cast, but I understand why they did it. It just wasn't... It didn't hit the mark. It didn't hit every bullseye that it was aiming for. The weakest part of the game would probably have to be the prosecutor, Gavin. Like, Andrew and I talked about this in our big Ace Attorney video about the prosecutors, that Gavin was just dull. And he's a rock star. He's a freaking rock star, a prosecutor. I'm like, and they did next to nothing with him. His character felt just poorly defined. He didn't really play off of Apollo all that well. And with the lack of a good prosecutor, defense attorney dynamic in the game, it really did kind of lessen some of those cases. It's just like, and again, they weren't bad cases. It just felt like it could have been better if they changed some things. It could have been a lot better. Gavin was definitely one of the weakest parts because, well, he's the main prosecutor in the game. So I really feel like they should have done a little bit more to actually have him be more interesting, because he's dull. I mean, shoot, he has a cameo in Dual Destinies, and it's like, I liked him a little bit more there, and I think it's the fact that he had a small role, and it's like, okay, no, it's small. It's not major, and it's amazing, and it features him teasing Apollo about Athena, which, okay, that's cute. But in Apollo Justice, it wasn't all that interesting for me. It's a game that I think is important, and it introduces a lot of these characters, but I think a lot of this stuff really improves over the course of the second trilogy. My favorite cases would have to either be like the first and the last case, because that's where we get the most real Phoenix. In the first case, you have this interesting story, and then I remember when I was playing this for the first time, and Phoenix goes up to the defense bench, and he starts like totally going all classic Phoenix, and just totally takes down Christoph Gap, and it's like, it's amazing, it's great. And then he kind of just goes back to being Hobo Phoenix. And then at the end, when you especially the part where you get to play as Phoenix, like, that was one of my favorite parts, because then you get to see, there's classic Phoenix still in there. He's just got this whole intricate plan going on, and he's like, is everything planned out to a T? And it's like, yeah, we've seen him win impossible cases with literally no preparation. So what happens if you give him 7 years? He becomes a freaking David Xanatos level mastermind, and it's hilarious. It's great, and I knew that was what Phoenix was doing. There's so much where Phoenix is just kind of being Hobo Phoenix that it kind of detracts from it, because Phoenix Wright is the main character, and it's a little disappointing not to have him as much in the game, but everything does end up getting kind of fixed. There is one thing I would say is that they build up the whole jury system thing in the game, and then it just kind of never gets brought up again, never really factors into anything. It worked well for that one part in the last case, but in all honesty, you can tell that they were like, let's go back to form with Dual Destinies when they actually were making the game. So, with Dual Destinies, I actually really love Dual Destinies. It changed a few things that I wasn't as big on, but overall, I thought the game was really good. I thought the story was good. I think they did a really good job with sort of reinventing Apollo and sort of crafting him into a bit more of a separate character who doesn't feel like just Phoenix Wright 2.0, but just less Phoenix. It is a little weird. They introduced Athena, which is amazing. I love Athena. I adore Athena. Then you have Apollo, who plays so well off of her, because Apollo ends up becoming a bit of the negative Nancy and the sourpuss. He plays the straight man to all the antics, and it's great, because then you have Athena come in with her boundless optimism and energy, and it's like, and they play so well off of each other. And then you've got Phoenix finally comes back as a defense attorney, and it's like, okay, boom, we have Phoenix back, and it feels like classic Phoenix again. And then, but they keep all the good stuff from Apollo Justice. We have Trucy coming back. We have Trucy is mainly what it is. It's because I love Trucy. Everyone loves Trucy. So, but they sort of continue things. But it's like, okay, we recognize a lot of people weren't as happy about what was done with Phoenix. So Phoenix is back as a defense attorney. You've got, Athena being brought into the Write Anything agency. And it's like, okay. And then they had this great dynamic with the characters, and it all really worked out really well. One real criticism I have for the game, the one thing that really kind of annoyed me, was the fact that you couldn't do just basic investigations over everything and everywhere. Like, you could do, but everything, you go click, all right, just investigate. Oh, hey, look, there's a lamp. And you click, and it's like, what commentary do they have on that? They took that out. Now, they did introduce the really great, room investigations, where you can change the different angles and look at things and try to pick it out and find evidence and, check out the crime scene, which I do like. I really like that. And the fact that I love that they brought back the regular investigations for Spirit of Justice, along with these more specific main investigations. It's like, okay, yeah, it's the best of both worlds. We just have all of it. And I also like in a lot of the newer games, and they changed the fact that you don't have to go through all of these specific pathways to get to certain rooms or areas, because it's more of a, okay, you can just kind of go wherever you want. When they introduced that in the new games, it's just like, thank you, because it was so frustrating to have to go from room to room to room, area to area to area to area, just to get to certain ones, because certain ones connected to other certain ones, like an actual map, like if you're going to certain areas. But it's a little frustrating when you need to get to one spot, and it's like, ugh. Good quality of life change there. Dual Destinies actually also introduced the Blackwell. And let's be honest, Blackwell is one of the best prosecutors we've ever had. And it's so funny, because when I played the game, I wasn't sure how I'd feel about him, but it was very quickly I warmed up to him, and I adored Blackwell. Especially when you actually get into his backstory and his connection to Athena and Athena's mother. And you get the whole stuff, the incident at the space station and everything. And it has a very interesting story, which I won't spoil everything in that, but it's like, and that was another game where it took me totally off guard because the writing was so good in that game. Dual Destinies did a really good job of this. I'm not even going to talk about the plot twist, or one of them anyway, because it's like, oh no, because I thought it was so well done, it took me off guard. Again! They did it to me again! And it's so funny because I'm used to just calling stuff out, and Andrew will tell you, I do this a lot. Like if we're watching something or playing something, I'll just start calling out what are supposed to be plot twists, and I'm always good at I'm not even trying to predict stuff. It seems obvious to me. I mean so that's why whenever I get these plot twists that just blow my socks off, like I really have to praise it because that's some solid writing to where I didn't even see it coming. Never saw it coming. But yeah, the last case really with Dual Destinies is really where it all kicks off with the big finale and everything, all the plot lines come together. I also like the fact that it's also still delved into a bit of Apollo's backstory, and it's become a meme that Apollo has a million different backstories, but mainly it's the fact that we've been seeing Apollo at different points in his life. When it's like, yeah, you get the part, especially in Spirit of Justice, when he was very young, and you also find out stuff that happened to him as a baby. Then in Dual Destinies, you get the thing of, okay, what happened to him when he was like in middle school, and this is how he met Clay, and this is why Clay was important to him, and all the stuff that was going on in the game with him, and all how that connected to him, and how that affected him. And it's like, oh yeah, that's great. And then, actually now I think about it, Apollo Justice didn't really give him too much of the backstory. Yeah, there's still some parts of Apollo's backstory that have been left blank, but I actually do like the fact that they've developed Apollo's character, because he was built up to be like a taking over as the protagonist, and even though that didn't really pan out, which I'm kind of glad because I like Phoenix as the protagonist, and I think they've done a lot of great stuff with him in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. I do like the fact that they actually did develop Apollo, because Apollo is probably one of the main focal characters of the new trilogy, even if he's not mainly the main protagonist all the time like he was in Apollo Justice. I'm like, no, that's good. They didn't just dump him. They didn't just forget about him. Like, no, we're going to keep him, we're going to develop him, but we also have Phoenix back as our primary protagonist because, well, he's Phoenix freaking Wright. He's the main protagonist of the series. So, yeah, I thought that was really well done. And the whole plot of the game was great, and the way everything built up, and all the storyline all the way to the end of the game. Dual Destinies was great. Now the first investigations game. Let's to round that out. The investigations is very interesting, and I'm a little disappointed they haven't done more with it. I'm disappointed we haven't gotten an official translation for the Investigations 2. Because I actually like it a lot more than the first Investigations. Because the first Investigations game is great. But I'm like, shoot, I bet someone put a fan translation on a DS cart, and you can actually play it on a DS, which is great. It's really great, because it's got the full English translation that was done by the fans on an actual DS. And I'm like, and it's sad because it's like, we haven't gotten that game. And it's like, and I honestly think there's potential to do more. It says we get to have Miles Edgeworth as the protagonist. You could have an investigations game with Franziska, with Blackwell. You could do so much interesting stuff with that. And it's a little sad that it just kind of gets overlooked sometimes. Because the first Investigations is interesting because you finally get to see things all from Edgeworth's perspective. You get to solve cases as him. Now, it doesn't really go into the courtroom because, well, you're not prosecuting it officially, but it's all handled in ways that are like, okay, no, you figure everything out and you solve it, and then it's like, okay, and then they're going to get arrested. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see that departure. And of course, Edgeworth is the one who gets the game because he's the most popular prosecutor, and it's not surprising. And I do think it was a good choice because you definitely get a lot of good insight to his character, and you really get to see he's as much of an idiotic dork as everyone else. He just hides it better. Especially in the first game when you go into his office and it's been ransacked. and there were bullets everywhere, like there were bullet holes, everything was like, things were destroyed, and you go up to his steel samurai figure, and he's like, oh, thank goodness, they didn't damage my steel samurai figure. Oh yeah, the rest of your office is in shambles, but that's what really matters. And it's so funny, because you really get to see a lot more of Edgeworth, and it makes me like Edgeworth a lot more when you get to see that. You also get to see flashbacks, and I do like Turnabout Reminisce. I really loved seeing that, and you get to see a younger Francisca before she officially became a prosecutor at age 13. And you get to see her competing with Edgeworth, and you get to see how Manfred treats them, just pitting them against each other and treating them just like competition. And just sort of like being so mean and cruel to them. It's awful. And it's like, it makes you glad. Yeah, I'm glad he's gone. So you get a lot more build up on his backstory. And the introduction of characters like Kay and Detective Bad, oh, those are great. And I want them to appear in the main games. I want Kay to appear. Detective Bad, okay, maybe a cameo, but I want Kay to show up. I want Kay to be part of one of these newer games. I want to see an older Kay. Like we get to see an older Emma and an older Maya. Like, yeah, Emma got to be involved in the games, and Emma's actually in investigations, which is great because she shows up for her case, and it's like, oh no, she's a little bit older, but it's like she's still on her way to wanting to become a forensics investigator. It's actually really great. It's got some nice fan service stuff, some nice callbacks to previous games, and you have that hilarious fact that Edgeworth never calls Phoenix by name. He always calls him that man. And it's like, oh, Edgeworth, you edgelord. He's your best friend. You've already gotten past all of this. Why are you being so edgy? Oh, it's an enjoyable game with a great plot too. And it's like, I like how they, especially at the end, which I'm not going to spoil that because I actually really like it. I like the plot. I like the ending. And I like the fact that, shoot, you get Francisca more as a consistent character that's a supporting character throughout the game. Being, well, Francisca, so that adorable, angry German that we all know and love. The one weak point of the first Investigations games that I'm going to say is Agent Lang. It's not that Lang is an inherently bad character or a bad idea. I just felt he felt so dull and obnoxious. Like, okay, this is a bit of what I had an issue with Nayuda before you find out that Nayuda isn't actually all that bad. But it's like with Lang, it's like he's just such a dick. And he's so mean and rude to Edgeworth, and it's like, why? And I know when I was playing it, I heard people saying, oh, well, yeah, he gets more development in the second game. And I'm like, yes, but it wasn't translated, and it's only now that I'm getting around to actually playing to the second Investigations game. And it's like, man, but I really shouldn't have to wait for his character to not be obnoxious. And every time he was just being rude and so mean, it didn't make him likable. He wasn't entertaining. He had some funny bits, like especially with his assistant Ming Na. It's like, oh no, I really like the way they were all synchronized with the way they did stuff, and he was kind of funny in a lot of ways. But with Lang, he wasn't enjoyable. It's kind of the same issue I have with Gavin with Gavin in Apollo Justice, where it's like, yeah, he's just not that interesting of a prosecutor. And in this case, Lang acts as the rival to Edgeworth, but it's like, I don't know, there were some times when it almost felt like he was doing things wrong and trying to just to impede everyone's progress just for the sake of it. And it really grated on my nerves, and it was only at the very end of the game where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, he's got a few redeeming qualities. I'm like, I had to play through the entire game to find out, well, he's not 100% a dick, and it's like, I really wanted him to have more development. It's like, sure, he was grading at first, but pretty much all the prosecutors are grading at first anyway, outside of a few like Blackwell. I just fell in love with Blackwell. I loved him so much. And Francesca, I'll be honest, I ended up really liking her very quickly too. But it's like, yeah, okay, some of these characters, like, yeah, you may not like him as much. Like Edgeworth. I didn't like Edgeworth at first until you start getting into his backstory and his character development. Then he ends up becoming a favorite character. And I feel like Lang could have been that in just the first Investigations game, but there are just some issues that really hold him back. And it's like he doesn't really get the development. He never really changes. He never stops acting obnoxious. But until the end where he does something that I find is kind of respectable at the end of the game. And it's like, okay, but I had to play through the entire game for you to do one thing that I actually thought was decent. And that's a little disappointing. It's not enough to ruin the game. I still love the first Investigations game, but I definitely do like in Investigations 2, I do like the fact that you got, DeBest, Sebastian DeBest as your rival, and then you've got Judge Courtney, because Judge Courtney obviously is so rule-bound that she's just like, her being obnoxious actually makes sense if she's being this so pedantic about all the rules. And then Sebastian's so stupid and so egotistical that it's outright hilarious, and everyone's calling him out as being an idiot left and right, and it's great. And I feel like it really handles them being like rivals and sort of antagonistic characters better than Lang was in the first Investigations game. In a lot of ways, I think Investigations 2 is just so much more enjoyable than the first Investigations, but it's still good, and I want to stress that. Even though I'm saying some of these negative things, it's like, no, there are some things that I liked. I really liked the moment very early on in Investigations where, you have an elevator, and Edgeworth is sort of like, elevators, and it's like, oh, it's a nice little moment that you have that. I like I love Miles Edgeworth's interactions with Kay, where she very much becomes his Maya. But she's also a thief. Everything about Kay in those games is great. I especially love seeing a little itty bitty Kay in the flashback case and Turnabout Reminisce, where it's like, oh yeah, here she is as a little itty bitty child all those years ago. And I like how that ends up tying into the story. I love Detective Bad, and I loved seeing him in the game and how he tied into the plot. It's like, I don't want to spill too much of the plot because it's like, no, I really think the plot's good. It's like, I'm talking about Injustice for All because the game is like, what, 15 years at this point? Around that time, I don't remember exactly when it came out, but it came out like over a decade ago. Well, some of these games, like, no, I highly recommend you play it. If you haven't actually played the first Investigations games and you're a fan of Ace Attorney, I highly recommend to get it. I highly recommend it because it's really good. And it's like, I feel bad complaining, but it's like, well, there are some flaws in some of these games, but none of these games, even the ones I consider the worst out of them, it never detracts enough to make them bad games. It's like, sure, it's like, a few little issues here, but it's like, yeah, but it's like you have so much good in the game, and it's like it totally outweighs all the bad. So yeah, sometimes some of the fandom will just blow things out of proportions, because especially with Apollo Justice, you've got some people who think the game is absolute garbage, it's the worst thing ever, if you like it, you're a heretic and not a true fan. But then you've got some people who stand the game and you're like, it's the greatest game ever, and it's like, I don't agree with either one of those sides. It's like, no, I'm in the middle. It's still good, but it's definitely got a few flaws and a few issues that kind of held it back from being great. But then again, all those issues really got fixed as the series went on with Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, where I think Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice might be some of my favorites in the entire franchise. So yeah, I think that about covers it for a lot of this. Trust me, the Ace Attorney series is great, and I highly recommend you getting your hands on all of them. All of the games, and they're re-releasing the games like the original trilogy. If you haven't gotten into Ace Attorney, especially if you're into those types of games with the puzzles and logic stuff, trust me, they're great. So yeah, I think that about wraps this up. If you want to submit a topic to me, you can either comment below if you're on YouTube, send me an ask on Tumblr and put topic : then whatever topic you want me to talk about. If you're on the Discord, you can send me just post it in the topic submissions channel, and I'll put it on the list. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. So what are your favorite and least favorite Ace Attorney games? What are your thoughts on all of these games? Please comment below, and thank you for watching.